Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want you fired up about our children's book author. Today, I'll be speaking with A G Sinko about her book, Blossom and the Dragon. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, AG. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. This is an amazing opportunity for me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, as is tradition here on the show, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves for perhaps those few folks out there that may be unfamiliar with your work. So first question to you is, what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I have been writing for a while, but not considered myself a writer for quite some time. And I've actually went into stage work. I was a stagehand for a little while, and as I got into education, they said, "Okay, your writing is really good. You should try publishing." And so one course came after the other, and I fell into a class where my professor really got what I was trying to do, and really moved me along to actually believe that I could be a writer, and the rest is history. Here I am. Writing children's books.
I love it. I love it. Now, being an author, at what point in your life did you realize that, hey, this is really what I should be doing? You know, many times we, like somewhat of your story, where someone says you should really do this, but it doesn't mean you take to it right away. What was the time frame between someone kind of nudging you and you saying, yes, this is what I want to do?
Probably about 10 years, believe it or not. It was somebody, when I was writing stuff for school and making up stories for what I was teaching, and they're like, "No, this is really good. This is really good." And to be honest, one of the college courses for outside people, for non-matriculated people, said, come with us. We not only do we help you write, but we offer publishing conferences and things like that. And so I said, I'll give it a try. And it fit my schedule, and that teacher got me. And she's like, no, you are destined to be a writer. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And
I mean, it really is true. I think that some people have been placed in our lives to help us along our personal journeys, and they are there for that sole reason. That person that gives you the nudge or that encouragement, or leads you for a particular amount of time, and then they're on to help the next person. And it sounds like that person was exactly that for you, to really keep you encouraged and to show you that it's available to you. I love that story. I love it. Now, the title of your book, Blossom and the Dragon. I like the title. How did you determine that would be the name for your work?
I wanted Blossom to be different from her village, in that she's a free spirit, and that lets you know what she thinks, and so Blossom, and then the dragon just came organically. She got lost in a forest. Who lives in a forest? But a dragon lives in a forest. It just all flowed. Once I got Blossom started, picking berries and doing her thing, and like, okay, how can we make this a story? How can we make this interesting? And so she runs into the dragon. And as I said, she wants to be bold, and she wants to be, she wants to do her thing.
And I think that for so many of the children's book ideas that we see, dragons are a very successful way to allow children to use their imagination, because there's nothing in real life to disprove, like the child's version of what they see in their head. So it's like,
Mhm.
absolutely, if it's
Mhm.
flying around or zipping around or whatever, then like, good job. So I love that idea. Now, as far as the storyline is concerned, many times when we speak to producers of various shows, they will say, this character or this event was inspired by something that happened in real life. How did you come up with the bits and pieces of the story that you included for the book?
I actually, this was my last college essay that I had to write for the night because the deadline was fast approaching for applications, and the application said in no fewer than 1,000 words, explain the quote. It is not the hardest thing for man is not to learn but to unlearn. And I thought, okay, and I really, I didn't know what to do. So I said, you know what? It's my last one. I probably won't get in anyway. So I just wrote a story, and that was the first draft of Blossom and the Dragon.
I love that. I'm so glad I asked that question. But I like that question that was also posed to you. Oh my goodness, it is difficult for many, many, many people to unlearn. And we won't get all into that, but that is
No,
such
but
a
yeah,
great question. I'm glad you answered it. hmm
yeah, yeah.
Now, when you decided to make that into the book that it is today, why was doing it from the perspective of a children's book important as opposed to perhaps making it for adults or making it more of a kind of medieval setting? Why was using the children's perspective important?
I think to kind of give them hope and to kind of remind them as they're growing that you can legitimately make friends with different people or different beings. You don't all have to be the same neighborhood, same city, same state. You can go out elsewhere and find friends, and that you can be friends, and that also young people have the power to change adults' minds, because at the end of the book, the other adults from the village have to come to an understanding with Dragon. They have to come and make their own minds up as to how they're going to treat the dragon. So I
hmm
thought that was important for young kids to know that they still have that power.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's so relevant for today because we see our young people out there making great strides to hold the adults accountable to what they've been teaching us, to love one another, to
Hmm.
be kind, and
Hmm.
and all of that. So you are so right there. Now, as far as the age group is concerned for your book, many times we hear children's book and we get a certain idea in our heads, like little kids, like elementary school or middle school. Everyone's version of children's book is different. What is the perfect age group for your book?
I think for the young reader, maybe starting at 6 or 7, and for the struggling reader, maybe 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, as they get used to reading, and they say, oh, it fits right into chapter books. So the young person who is reading, say, chapter books, and trying to find something different other than mysteries or something like that.
Right, right. I do. Okay, so that is for me when I think of children's book, that's exactly that age group right in there. 6, 7, 8, 9 is the age group that I think of. Thank you for clarifying that.
Hmm.
Now, one thing that children's book authors has the additional task of not only making sure that their storyline is age appropriate, but you guys have to find an illustrator as well. What was that process like? How did you go about finding the perfect person to illustrate your book?
So my father is Hungarian, and we were visiting relatives in Hungary, and I knew that my cousin was going to art school or had been to art school, um, and then we were visiting them, and actually I saw a drawing that she had made of a fairy, and I said, "Wow, that's an amazing picture." All right, so her mom goes, "Oh, let me show you," because my cousin at that point was at work, and we were visiting, her parents and her family. And so my aunt decided, in no uncertain terms, to pull out my cousin's portfolio and showed me dragons and all kinds of magical creatures. And I was like, "Wow, dragons!" And I have this book. And I was afraid to let somebody else do it. So anyway, that's how we got on. That's how I got to my illustrator. Was when my cousin came home from work. She's like, "Why did you take my portfolio out?" I said, "Never mind that. I said, would you do my book?" We're sorry for the invasion of privacy, but would you do my book? And she did, and she did a marvelous job. She did a just amazing job, and she's illustrating the next one as well.
Wow. Oh my goodness. See what I mean? That just really goes along. You thought that you were just going on a visit. And that this was going to it ended up being something much more than you imagined. Wow, to be able to just actually see something, an example of what you were talking about. I love it. I love that. I tell you, God can do some amazing things in our lives when we do
Absolutely.
exactly what we're
Absolutely.
supposed to do, right? I love it. I love it. Now, AG, one of the other questions that every author has to ask themselves is, how am I going to publish my book? And we have to make the determination, do I self-publish? Do I use the professionals? You go through a publishing house. How did you make the determination of how you would publish your book?
I approached some regular publishers, quote unquote regular publishers, and there's always a caveat that I did not agree to, and so I said, you know what, let me try self-publishing first. And the company that did self-publish had a lot of positive things going for them. So I said, you know what, let me go the self-publishing route, see what happens. And so far everything's been great. Everything's been great.
That is so good. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I think that is one thing that many authors are really looking at, and that, do I want to check all of the boxes? Or is doing self-publishing just easier for me, and it settles in your spirit the way that it's going to settle. And like you said, you have to make the choice that's proper and true for you. And I think more and more people are realizing that you can still share your work, you can still get your idea and your story out there. And self-publishing is, it's booming. It is not what it was, 20 years ago, where people thought, ooh, self-publish. Now it's like, you should self-publish, get it out there. So I'm so glad you made that decision. Well, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
So the name of the book is Blossom and the Dragon, and we can get it at Amazon. We can get it at the publisher's website, FriesenPress.com, or Barnes and Nobles. How to stay in contact with me, my website is agsinko.net, and my Instagram is author.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
Hi everyone, Dr. Angela here. Did you know that Daily Spark is now on Facebook? That's right, you can visit with me at facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I want to know more about what you're thinking. I'd love to know, which interview did you find the most entertaining or the most informative? I want to talk to you, and I want you to be able to talk to me. Simply visit facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is A G Sinko, and we're talking about her book, Blossom and the Dragon. Now, you have written a children's book, and my listeners know that I absolutely love children's book authors because you guys inspire our little ones, and I think that that is such an important thing to do, that you have a very important task to encourage them and allow their imaginations to grow. I want to ask you about your choice of dragon. Now, I know this might sound a little odd, but there's all kinds of different dragons when we think about a dragon in our mind's eye. For children's books, you may not want the scariest ones with, fire breathing. But maybe you do, because you want to talk about anger or how to deal with being upset. How did you determine the personality of the dragon and how you would display that in the book?
What a hard question. Actually, he wants to be friends. He's been lonely in his forest by himself for so long, and he's afraid of the villagers, and so he didn't reach out to the villagers till Blossom came and got lost. So he needed some company too, and I kind of played that along. He's defending his home with his fire breathing, but he doesn't want to hurt anybody. He just wants to be friendly, and he wants to be kind of left alone, and if they're not going to be nice to him, but he finds that they do, so he's all set. He's good to go.
I'm really glad that you didn't take the fire away from him. You didn't declaw the cat, because that is an important part of the character. We all kind of have that fire, inside of us, but for the most part, most people don't want to have to, get to that point where they have to be a little bit more gruff or a little bit more heated in their discussion. So I love that he still has that attribute and you didn't take that away from him. And there's can we figure out how to do this and do it peacefully? I love it. Now, when it comes to COVID, unfortunately, so many authors have said that COVID has gotten in the way of their plans, which I think that it has gotten in most people's way. So there's no more book expos, book signings and going out and about and doing all of those things. And we've had to be very creative in how we do what we've been doing for the past few years. With that being said, were you still able to find creative ways in which to stay in contact with your customer base? I know for many artists, we had those virtual Zoom concerts and stuff like that. Were you able to be as creative?
Absolutely. I have another talk scheduled for next month. I'm getting into the local libraries, and they have Zoom author talks through Zoom and things like that. And I found the pandemic has helped me because people are stuck at home and they're tired of watching just one thing on TV. So let's branch out. Oh, a book. Hey, we could read a book. New book has come out. So to be honest, it's been very helpful to me to have people trying new things and looking for new books and stuff like that.
Now, do you think that when the world has returned to, air quotes, normal, whatever that means, right? When the
Hmm.
world returns to normal, do you think that we will continue to do some of the things that we're doing now? Like you said, thanks to these Zoom calls, we have been able to reach an audience that perhaps you wouldn't have reached before simply because of the convenience of it all.
Hmm.
People don't have to leave the comfort of their home, but they can still find out about new authors. Is your hope that we will continue to do some of these things, or would you like to go back to the more traditional way that we've been doing things?
I would like to do both. I would like to do
Yeah.
Zoom. I appreciate that we're reaching, like with this show, we're reaching so many more people, and I have the library talks, and we actually have people from Ohio who hook up to the Irvington, New York library because they can through Zoom. And so we didn't think that would, we don't realize how far we could reach with technology. So, but I do like signing the books. I do like watching the kids look at the book and like, ooh, this is cool, and having person to person, interactions.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for both. Yeah.
Absolutely. I can definitely agree with you there. There's nothing like having that in-person energy, and I think that that's what many artists missed as well. Having live concerts and just the energy of all of the people being of like mind in that moment. So I definitely understand that. Now, for some of the others that I get to talk to, one of the things that they say is, during this time, it has given me an opportunity to write more, where perhaps they didn't have the time before, where you were either getting up early or staying up late to find time to write. Now, since everyone, like you said, is home, there's much more convenient time available. Have you been able to use that time as well to continue to write? Are there more books that you will be releasing soon?
I have found, yes, I found the extra time has been extraordinarily helpful. I do have another adventure of Blossom and the Dragon that I hope to release by September, so that we can have it in time for the holidays at the end of the year. And then we see what happens. We see how we move on, how we move forward. I teach at a local community college, so if I'm not writing, I'm teaching. So and we do a lot of teaching through the web, through Zoom still. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to so-called normal.
Now, do you think that because you do have that teacher background, that it helped you to write a story that the children were able to really connect with a lot easier, as opposed to perhaps some other profession where you don't have that connection directly with children? Do you think that it was an asset in any way?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I could see in real time how they react to certain things and how they perceive different things, and really how, if you have 30 kids in your class, you have 30 different opinions and different takes on things. So that was that, and they were not afraid to let what their thoughts were on a particular topic or subject. And I find that fascinating. That despite their being young, they still have a lot to say.
In my humble opinion, when you have those true conversations and not that kind of like baby talk kind of thing, but real
Hmm.
conversations with them, then they learn to use their imagination more, to expand and to use the vocabulary that they're learning along the way. I love that. You're so right there. Now, for someone who is an aspiring children's author, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit with you. They may be saying, you know what, AG, I hear your story and it sounds like, everything is just right for you. You're a teacher and you have, this wonderfully artistic cousin and oh, that is great. But I'm over here struggling. I want to be a children's book author, but I don't know where to start. What would be a piece of advice that you would give to that person who wishes to write their first children's book?
I would say write the story. Let it come. And let the story out and see where it takes you. And so like there has been stories that I've started I thought were say middle grades, like grades 3, 4, and 5, and they turned out to be much older, stories. So I said, nope, okay, not my kid's book, but then Blossom came, and Blossom literally blossomed in front of me. And so for the aspiring writer, I would just say keep writing, and when you think you can't write any more about that topic, have somebody read it. Have a writing buddy or a study buddy or somebody to give you honest but not cruel feedback. And when you think you're finished, then we go to the publisher. And as you said, self-publishing is not that terrible. Everybody get up and go. But you'd be surprised that maybe the big people will pick you up. And just keep the faith. Keep the faith.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, you gave great advice there, and I love that bit about ask that person who's going to be honest with you, but not the person who's going to be cruel. And I think that for so many people, I don't know where they get the idea that you have to be nasty when you critique someone's work. You can be critical, but you don't have to be so mean about it. There's a nice way to deliver things too. And I'm sure there's folks that are going to disagree with me out there, but many times I find that people that are creative, if you have perhaps a gentler delivery of maybe you should do this instead of that, that is much more welcomed than that harsh criticism, which then makes a person defensive of their work. So I like it. Well, A G Sinko, I have so enjoyed my talk with you today. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing about your book and giving us all of these words of encouragement. But before I let you go, can you please remind everyone one last time, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Sure. The name of the book is Blossom and the Dragon. We can get it at Amazon or where books are sold. You can keep in contact with me. My website is agsinko.net, and Instagram is at author AG Sinko.
I love it. Thank you again, AG, for being a guest on the show today.
Thank you for having me. This was
absolutely. And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here today as well. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to spend it with me, and I thank you for doing so. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.